Good morning, everybody. Welcome to AEI International Webinar Series. Our presentation today is by Professor Sarwar Uddin Ahmed from Bangladesh Independent University. Good morning, Professor Sarwar.
Good morning.
Good morning. I also would like to express my gratitude to distinguished Professor Dato Dr. Rajarashia for moderating session today. Good morning, Prof. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Professor Fumitaka.
Now, I would like to invite our Deputy Executive Director of AI, Professor Dr. Sarina Lo, to say a few to begin this webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Fumitaka. A very good morning to all of you. It may be good afternoon to some people from overseas, or a good evening somewhere else in the world. First of all, it's indeed my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you virtually to AEI, Asia Europe Institute at the University of Malaya. Now, this webinar, it's very apt and timely, as in order for me to quote Milton Friedman, a famous American economist who has actually received the Nobel Memorial Prize in 1976. And he famously argued, that social responsibility of any business begins and ends with the maximization of profits. However, on the other hand, Peter Drucker pointed out that a corporation exists for the sake of society, and they must take responsibility for its impact on that society. Now, however, there are two extreme school of thoughts here, and that attitudes towards social responsibility lies actually in a spectrum. So this webinar is now brought to you to examine the relationship between institutional investment and corporate social responsibility. So I hope that you will enjoy the presentation by our guest speaker, Professor Sarwar, and its deliberation in this webinar. Thank you all. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Fumitaka.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Professor Sarina. And now let me introduce today's our moderator, Professor Rajarashia. I would like to read briefly his CV. Professor Rajarashia is distinguished professor at AEI Asia Europe Institute here, and he obtained his doctorate in economics from Cambridge University 1990. Was Rajawati Fellow at Harvard University in 2014. He was first holder of Hazana National Chair of Regulatory Studies. He also served Dean of Faculty of Economics Administration, University Malaya in 2009, 2010, 2013 to 14. And he received numerous awards, but the best one is Malaysia's highest academic award. He was conferred the Merdeka Award for Academic Excellence in 2019. Also, due to his contribution to society and academics, he received status from Sultan Perak in November 2019. Professor Russia and floor is yours, Prof, and to moderate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Fumitaka Provoka. I'm not sure if you all are hearing me because I only heard about a third of what you had to say about me. But I'm sure
sorry. Sorry.
I hope Zahadin is watching this so that he could probably assist me along the way if it doesn't come out well. I feel honored that I've given this opportunity to present an eminent speaker, this time from Bangladesh. I'd also like to thank Professor Sarina Lo, as well as our director, Professor Just One Thing. Now, coming back to this topic, we'll be hearing eminent speaker Professor Sarwar Uddin Ahmed from the Independent University of Bangladesh, and he will be speaking on linkage between social responsibility and institutional investment, evidence from Bangladesh. We've had a rich vein of scholars from Bangladesh in particular who've dealt with the poor. And a prominent name that often comes out is Professor Muhammad Yunus, who everybody would know is a Nobel laureate who shared the Peace Prize for his contributions to microfinance and in that way alleviating poverty. And I'm sure in the case of Professor Sarwar, I think he's going to be speaking much broader, including institutional investments that are probably going to be relying on extracting money in the stock market, but at the same time with a focus on social responsibility. I think we heard some interesting points from Professor Sarina about social responsibility from the world-renowned personnel management guru, Peter Drucker. And of course, the emphasis on markets and profits coming from customer choice, the 1977 Nobel laureate Milton Friedman. But let me just mention that in the context of institutional investment, we first had initially a reluctance, but subsequently managements of companies feeling that they have to emphasize corporate social responsibility because of governments hounding them to say that the society should also be in the equation. But today, a whole lot of firms that deal with this are looking at it as an avenue, as a platform to make money, because the world is moving in that sort of direction. So it's really nice that we have an eminent speaker to see the relationship between the two variables, institutional investment and social responsibility. Professor Sarwar Uddin Ahmed actually holds a PhD from Nagasaki University. And then, of course, he's been smart enough to garner 2 Fulbright awards, one of which took him to University of California, Berkeley, where he was at the Haas Business School. And then he also has done his postdoc at the McNair State University. And I'm sure he will bring with him a rich account experience to share with us from his background, having not only focused on this topic, and especially on financial issues, but also leading as director of the Bachelor in Business Administration at the Independent University, Bangladesh. I think Professor Sarwar Uddin will be given 45 minutes to deliver a speech, after which we'll field questions. Thank you. The floor is yours, Professor Sarwar Uddin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Let me pull my presentation. Can everybody see it?
Yes,
I can, yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. Actually, as you know, I was supposed to have this particular seminar physically in Malaysia and back in March this year, but it didn't happen. And so I got that offer to hold this webinar series now to connect, and I said, why not? And we are going through a very special situation. I was supposed to have this presentation from my office, but the office is shut down from today. So I guess this is the new normal, though it's not new anymore. It's about 3 months. I guess this.
I don't hear you anymore.
Yeah, my presentation is not anymore here. Okay, let me share it again. All right, can you see it?
It comes and goes.
Oh, okay.
I can see you now. The slide was there earlier. Yes, it's back. The cover.
Okay. I'm starting again. So let me first discuss the presentation outline today. I'm going to first provide a brief introduction about Bangladesh economy. Then I'm going to discuss about some of the recent sustainability concerns. I'll be also discussing about the costs and benefits of being socially responsible. Then I will discuss about the conceptual model that will relate corporate social performance with institutional investment and how it pays. Then I'm going to summarize and conclude and put some shed some light on future studies. First, let me provide you a brief background on Bangladesh. It's a small country with large population, with high population density, but that also gives us a huge number of working population. Still, agriculture is the biggest sector, and our main export is RMG products. Now, let me share some interesting facts that drives really Bangladesh economy. Bangladesh economy is now a $285 billion economy. For the last 7 years, it's registered around 6% growth. Due to this huge population, we have 75% of our population are below 35 years. So this really gives us a huge young and inexpensive workforce. And almost 2 million new workers are added every year to the workforce. There is a growing middle class in Bangladesh, and this really increases the purchasing power of Bangladeshis. We are close to two of the fastest growing economies, India and China. And also, over the years, Bangladesh have achieved food securities due to enhanced crop productivity. Also, Bangladesh have been graduated from LDCs in last March 2018. And many of you know Bangladesh is also very, very vulnerable to climate change. Bangladesh have a lot of unique innovations in adapting to climate change. That's why Bangladesh is often referred to as the adaptation capital of the world. With this background, before going to my particular study, let me shed some light about the post-COVID-19 economic status of Bangladesh. This COVID-19 has some positive and of course some negative impacts in Bangladesh economy overall. Positive, while price fell down, our imports became cheaper, and this will result in lower government expenditure. For long during this period, we have stable inflation around 5.5%. We have a concrete flow of remittance. Due to this COVID crisis, we thought that remittance will fall down, but it didn't fell down that much, but decline may come in future. Exchange rate is quite steady for a long period of time, and also we have a strong foreign exchange reserve. Negative point is that 2020 will be hardly hit. GDP growth may fall to 2% or 3%. Although in the recent budget, it was forecasted that to achieve 8.2% growth in 2021. Garments export will decline. Recent budget, government will be depending on bank borrowing heavily for deficit financing. So as a result, there will be lower private investment, and also there will be decline in revenue earnings, and also our financial sector's vulnerability will rise. Having this background, let me now enter into my part of the study. I hope all of you remember about this tragic accident that happened in 2013 in Rana Plaza collapse. 1,100 people died on this tragic event. And then this and other accidents in the RMG sector triggered the introduction of this safety compliance by Accord and Alliance. And as a result of this inspection, many garments factories have been shut down during that period of time. In addition to that, we frequently see that farms or companies are discharging their pollutants directly to the water bodies. but they don't go unpunished. Government at different point of time, Department of Environment has imposed penalties and fines on these polluters. So to set the background, that we can say that lack of sustainability, that is lack of social and environmental responsibility, surely reduces the value of the farm, because it may lead to shutdown, it may lead to penalty, or it may lead to loss of reputation. On the other hand, increased sustainability or having sustainability or practicing corporate social responsibility helps to positively influence the institutional investors to invest into a particular company. Who are institutional investors? Institutional investors are investment banks, mutual fund, pension fund, insurance company. These are the big investors. They usually buy 30, 40, or 50% stake of a particular company. And these institutional investors, when invest into a particular company, they don't look only in profitability. They also look for sustainability. Why? Because it's very difficult for an institutional investors to go out of a company without significant loss. Because as they hold a huge amount of share in a particular company, when they try to sell those shares, they suffer huge losses. Because if they start selling at 100, price in the stock market will go on down and may end up selling those at 50 or 40. So price will fall down, because as they'll be selling a huge amount of share. So that's why when institutional investors invest into a particular company, they focus on sustainability. Because they know they are going to be in that company for a long period of time. On the other hand, why institutional investment is important for a particular firm? Because to a company, if institutional invest into that company, they buy huge amount of share and they hold it for a long period of time. They are not like short-term investors. And as they hold it for a long period of time, it's also good for the particular firm or a company, because that brings stability into that particular company. So both for the institutional investors and for the firm, it's a kind of a win-win thing if they become sustainable. So that really sets the objective of my particular study, which is to examine whether sustainability, that is corporate social performance, pays by attracting higher institutional investment, especially by firms or companies operating in Bangladesh. Now, to proceed the discussion, some of the operational definitions that we'll be using. I have already defined institutional investment, which is investment by institutions like pension fund, mutual fund, investment bank, etc. Corporate social performance. Corporate social performance is the assessment or the initiative taken by a particular firm with respect to governance, with respect to environment, community, workplace, and ethical values. And the relationship between institutional investment and CSP is said to be positive, because I have already mentioned that higher the CSP performance, higher should be the institutional investment, because it's very difficult for institutional investors to reshuffle their portfolio. And also, institutional investor brings long-term sustainability to the particular company. There are various literature examining the relationship between institutional investment and corporate social performance. Some found to be positive, some found to be neutral. But however, there are lack of and dearth of studies relating to developing countries. Now, this is my theoretical model. The dependent variable is institutional investment, and independent variable is corporate social performance, that will be measured in 6 of these dimensions. And we will control it for profitability of the company. We are going to control it for the size of the company, and we are going to control it for the financial leverage. So this is the model, and there will be 1 year time lag between social performance and their impact on their sustainability, that is institutional investment. Sampling will be our sample is Dhaka Stock Exchange, one of the 2 stock exchanges in Bangladesh. Another one is Chittagong Stock Exchange, but Chittagong Stock Exchange is not included. We have included the companies listed in Dhaka Stock Exchange. So at that point of time when we started this, there were 244 companies listed. Now it's 311. So out of those companies, we picked up 152 companies with disproportionate stratified random sampling technique. We divided the companies into 3 categories: manufacturing, service, and others. We have used 5-point staple scale. I'm going to explain later on. And then we send those questionnaires to the companies, but initially we had a very low response rate. And also another problem was that the questionnaire filled by those companies were biased towards higher CSP. Then we changed our technique. We went for knowledge-based filling used by many other indexes, where we examined the annual reports, CSR report, social report, company website, newspaper article, and journals in order to rate their CSP performances. We did it in 2008, 2012, and 2016. We do it in every 4 years for resource constant. Our next due year is 2020. And based on that one, we have developed our CSP index that I'm going to explain now. Measurement, we took the data for institutional investment from monthly review published by Dhaka Stock Exchange. And for the CSP, we calculated this by our own index. Our CSP construct had 6 dimensions: disclosure, workplace, ethical values, corporate governance, environment, and community. And we have used 5-point scale, where which can produce interval data, and also it can have negative figure, low figure, and high figure. It can go in different ways. Different indexes, KLD, FRS, these index also are uses this non-knowledge based filling technique. Now let me show you a glimpse of our index. We had total 33 indicators divided into 6 dimensions: disclosure, workplace, ethical values, corporate governance, environment, and community. Let me share one particular question pattern category that we have asked. This includes in disclosure on CSR. So those companies which are not doing the bare minimum legal requirement, such as they don't disclose their CSR activities in annual report or in company website, doesn't do anything, will get -5. A little bit better, they disclose the CSR activities in the annual report but doesn't do in the website, they will get -3. And which fulfill the legal requirement, disclose the CSR activities in both annual report and website, will get +1. The companies which go beyond, they dedicate more than 1 page in the annual report of CSR disclosure, will get +3. In addition, if they provide their financial data of CSR expenditure in the annual report, they will get +5. In this way, for every question we had these 5 categories that can go negative, that can become and positive. We have assigned those scores. Based on that one, this is a summary. I will show and discuss about each of these sector one by one. But historically, the banking sector was doing good, although their performance declined in 2016 a little bit. I will explain why. And another good performing sector is the financial institution. These are non-banks, non-banking financial institutions. They recently did well, you can see. There are some sectors which are not doing good. Tannery is not doing well. So this is the overall summary. Now let me discuss by one each sector. First, the bank. So let me guide you. This blue one is for 2008. This orange one is 2012, and green one is always for 2016. So as you can see that compared to 2008 and 2012, in 2016, we can see that disclosure was okay. In workplace it dipped. Corporate governance did well, banks did well, but again did poorly in environment, in community. The banking sector that has historically performed well in corporate social performance had some issues in 2016. In Bangladesh recently, the banking sector non-performing loan is rising, and due to this investment and due to this shortfall and issue with the non-performing loan, banks have to curb their investment in other sectors, in environment and community. So this might be one of the reasons for their fall. Another is that bank is is facing this problem of dual regulator. Banks are simultaneously regulated by Bangladesh Bank, the central bank, and also by the Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission. So this really, sometimes create this duality and problem and issues for the banking sector. Next, let us move to the cement sector. You can see they did well in the corporate governance, and this might be partly due to the enforcement of the code of conduct for corporate governance in 2016, and they did well. But as you can see, the cement sector did poorly in other dimensions like disclosure, workplace, community environment in this sector. One of the reasons might be this: they are facing cement sector is facing huge competition now, especially from the foreign cement companies, and also the prices of the raw material went up. So that's why this sector is having and facing this crisis recently. Then let us move to the ceramic sector. Ceramic sector is a growing industry. During the period of 2016, around that period, we have seen 200% growth in that particular industry. And only part they did poorly and they didn't that much well is corporate governance. By examining their annual report and website, we have seen that they failed to meet their stakeholders during this period of time, recent times. Then let me move to the engineering sector. Engineering sector, we can see that their performance is not also good compared to 2019, but they did well in environment area, the engineering sector. Many of the engineering firms, you can see that now they are LEED certified, and but however, their challenges are remaining with regard to the reporting and disclosure practices in their annual report and website. We have observed very poor reporting by this particular sector. Then let us move to the financial institution. As you can see, in all dimensions, they did very well, financial institutions. So recently what happened is that they are strictly regulated by the Bangladesh Bank, and also they've been allowed to operate as thrift institutions. So now they are allowed to receive deposit and provide loan. So this has really increased their portfolio and also contributed very significantly to their performances. Now let me move to the food and allied sector. This sector is also doing very good. It's a growing sector. Consumer demand is increasing, and also their regulatory pressure from the Bangladesh Food Safety Authority worked very well to make things good for them, good for this particular industry. Then let me move to the fuel and power sector. This sector, is not doing well. Mostly, this one is privatized sector, and we can see the regulatory gaps into this particular sector. They are struggling many of these areas like disclosure, workplace, ethical standard, environment, and community. Then let me move to the IT sector. You can see in this particular sector that we see poor performance compared to 2012 in some of the areas like corporate governance and ethical standard, and they are doing well. But we see that they are facing challenges in case of disclosure, workplace, environment, and community activities. And we see also lack of transparency and disclosure in their annual reports. All right. Now, let me move to the pharmaceutical and chemical sector. This sector is a thriving sector. It's one of the top exporters. But we see challenges of disclosure and control in that area, and in environmental part.
Don't hear anymore.
Sorry, the presentation is gone again. Okay, let me show. All right, so this is the pharmaceutical sector, and then let me move to the tannery sector. This sector is not also doing good. They have serious issues with regard, especially to the environment. Although this sector, these companies were relocated to Sarwar, there are serious issues with regard to the use of the ETP, effluent treatment plants, and they are performing poorly with regard to the environment. But they have made significant progress with regard to making disclosure and workplace safe. Now to the telecommunication sector, this is a small sector. Historically, they were doing very good, but recently we have seen that there is a fall compared to 2008, and this is 2012 and this is 2016. So their performance declined. Recently, they are facing lawsuit with the government, and different penalties and restrictions are imposed on them, and this really might have contributed to their fall in performance. Then it's the textile sector. In many areas they did well. They are doing good. In case of disclosure and maintaining ethics, they are doing good. But in some other areas they are facing difficulties like environment. This sector is facing challenges with related to supply chain led compliances and other regulatory issues that might have contributed to their poor performance. And finally, this miscellaneous sector, this actually include different types of company. For example, import-export company, a paint company, and ball pen producing companies. Different companies are included here. Overall, we see improvement in their performances in most of the criteria compared to 2012. All right, and let me move. So having this CSP index related performance, once we have calculated the CSP index, we related this data with our conceptual model and drawn the regression. We ran 3 models in 2008, 2012, and 16. But this in 2008, profitability data was used for 2009. For 2012, we have used 2013, and for 2016, we have used 2017. What we have seen that gradually RS square increased, our beta coefficient value also increased, but overall, still this relationship between the CSP and institutional investment is positive, but it still have a very low level of significance. All right, now let me summarize and conclude. We've been observing this closely since 2008, and over the years, what we have seen that yes, corporate social performance is increasing. Although there is a difference between different sectors. Some sectors were doing good, but they are not doing now doing poorly. Some sector used to be doing poorly, but now they are doing good. There is ups and downs. And what led really to this development? There is some debate that often I hear from Western scholars is that being sustainable or doing CSP or performing social responsibility should be left to the companies. It's the discretion of the company. But however, in Bangladesh, we don't see that. We see that wherever the government intervene and wherever there have been regulatory pressure, especially you can see it in corporate governance, we have seen improvement. So the most of this initiative that is taken and which is regulated more, we have seen better sustainability performance from those sectors. And also we have seen some positive change in attitude and understanding on CSR. And also Central Bank Bangladesh, one of the regulators, did very well in having different green banking regulations and practices. Also, they have incorporated these environmental, social, and governance factors into the credit risk grading qualitatively. So this has also worked very well. So we can see that in Bangladesh, social responsibility pays, but is still not very significant statistically. And why? Another reason might be that why we don't see this relationship to be very significant is due to the short-sighted investment attitude of the investor, which we call myopic institutions theory. They try to see investment into the stock market for a very short-term period, and also we can see this tendency among the institutional investors also. And overall, volatile investment climate in Bangladesh also might be one of the reasons. That's why we might not be able to see this significant relationship between institutional investment and corporate social performance. One of our suggestions is that there should be, as these developments are regulator driven, there should be some mechanism for reward and penalty. So in many of our papers, we have suggested that government should come up with the list of the companies which are more sustainable and recognize them with some award or some incentive. At the same time, there might be penalties, like we have seen in currently Bangladesh government is imposing different penalties to those companies who are not complying. So these penalties can be imposed. Finally, let me discuss the limitations of my study and some scope for future studies. As you can see, I have only included listed companies that are listed in Dhaka Stock Exchange. I haven't included Chittagong Stock Exchange. So the findings of my study can't be generalized for all firms operating in Bangladesh. Also, if we try to consider for future scopes, it's again 2020. It's time to update our index and conduct the study again. But usually there is a 1 year lag. At the end of 2021, maybe we'll be able to get all this information on annual report and data. Then we'll be able to conduct this study again, and we'll do it again. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Professor Sarwar Uddin for this very interesting talk. I shall not exercise my prerogative by raising questions. I would like to just make a few points before passing the cue to those who are listening. But before that, can I just remind those who are listening, connected with this whole webinar, please switch off your phones, because I can hear in the background lots of phones ringing. Now, coming back to the point, I think the two important points in relation to the variables Professor Sarwar Uddin used, one of which was institutional investment. By that, he's looking at 5 components: pension funds, mutual funds, investment banks, money coming from investment banks, insurance firms, and private firms. And the other one, of course, with 6 critical components of corporate social responsibility. In that, he discussed at length disclosure. He discussed at length workplace issues, ethical values, corporate governance issues, the environment, and community. Although I would have liked to see a synthesis flow figure as well in relation to an aggregate composite CSR, but that's okay. I'll come back to that later. Now, let's hear from the floor, those with questions. Question 1, I just got one from Alexander. Does Bangladesh show any shift in the indices shown due to COVID-19, coronavirus pandemic?
Okay. Thank you for the interesting question. We haven't incorporated this year yet, so I think in the future year, maybe in the next year, we'll be able to see this effect. So the answer is no, we don't know. We don't know yet.
Okay. Now, question to Professor Sarwar. What's the ready-made garment operation scenario after COVID-19? I mean, these are just projections that you can make rather than having to produce any evidence as such.
Yes, the recent figures that we are getting from BGMA and comment from this sector leaders is that they are expecting a fall in the order of garments product, cancellation of order. So normally we don't have the exact data, but we are expecting that garments production and order and export will fall down because there are order cancellations from the buyer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to note this, that there has been a sea change in some garment sectors, because I'm sure you heard JCPenney winding down.
All right.
Actually, these things were happening already because of the supplanting of these big brand names by logistic companies like Lazada, Alibaba, AliExpress, Wish, Amazon, and these guys are essentially taking over control of value chains, and that was already coming. So the new normal might mean eventually the closure of Walmart and Levi's and all those other big names too. But how would that then, meaning you have this disruption to value chains and a change in who controls those value chains, how do you see the future of the ready-made garment industry in Bangladesh? And when replying, you can also take into account, I think by 2021, although Bangladesh having overtaken Pakistan in per capita income terms and having already broken out from the least developed country status, but I think it will probably lose its privileges, preferences with regards to garment exports to the US and European Union in 2021. How do you think these adjustments would also affect the way you would respond?
Right. I think every crisis that we say is have issues and challenges, and also comes with opportunity. If you remember, when this crisis happened in Rana Plaza in 2013, we thought that it will be very hard for our garments companies to survive due to this compliance standard. But ultimately, due to having these safety standards and measures, we see many of the greener and best compliant country that came up from Bangladesh during these last 5 years. So I think this COVID-19 crisis that will change this supply chain mechanism is also a challenge for us. It will change the way we do business, but we will have to learn how to cope and adjust ourselves with this new mechanism of electronic way of dealing with and selling products. So of course, in the short term, there will be hiccups. This 2020 year would be very, very challenging and problematic for us. But I think with the proper adjustment and dealing with it, we'll be able to overcome and adjust. Of course, the target that we have set to become for 2020 and 2021 may not be achievable, but in the course of time, we'll be able to adjust.
There's another third question, Professor Sarwar, that just came in. The question says, and I'm probably reflected in your articulation of the paper, CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, has contributed heavily to the population of Bangladesh, especially the vulnerables. I mean, I didn't have the full opportunity to read the whole paper, but then the question then raises this point. Even though currently Bangladesh is characterized by a very young population, as you presented, 70% of them, but as they age, how the elderly will benefit from CSR practices? That's the question.
Okay, because if we make these companies sustainable, and especially as we are dealing with the whole sector, different companies and different. If we take the example of the banking sector, this banking sector, all the companies will be forced to come up with products and ideas that will help the elderly population and the senior citizens. And also, you'll see that as they are motivated to include their CSR expenditure into the annual report and into the financial statement, they'll be spending more into different charity events and different places that will really give dividend in terms of their sustainability performance. So that's why for all of these companies, a big portion of their consumer base includes also the senior citizen and elderly people. So in order to satisfy them, in order to contribute to these people, they are also going to design their product or their social responsibility initiative to help them and cater to their need. So that's why if the regulators and also the stakeholders demand more social responsibility and sustainability from the companies, automatically they will be forced to look into the senior citizens and elderly people.
Thank you. There is another question that just arrived, Professor Sarwar Uddin.
Okay.
This question actually requests that some sort of comprehension, some sort of feel for the industry. How will corporate social responsibility activities support ready-made garment workers in the new normal?
Actually, we try to capture these things that we see in the annual report and the website. And what we can see here is that, this new normal situation would be bringing challenges to them, especially the health concern. In terms of health, this garments worker will be facing challenges. And if this, many of the garments factories are taking measures in order to ensure safety of their workers, such as installing disinfection tunnels in front of their factories, having distances in between the employees, making shift. So some of the garments factories are coming forward and to take care of the health issues and the well-being of their employees. So we are going to observe it, and later on, when we are going to calculate our index again for 2020, hopefully we'll be able to include our observation about what these garment factories did for them in 2020 will be captured into their corporate social performance.
Thank you, Professor Sarwar. I have two questions now that I don't see any more questions from the audience around. The first one is, we all know that, among other reasons, of course, we shall not deny the contribution of Bangladesh workers, having had supervised Shamima Nasrin's PhD in the same area, which I think is a good thesis. Bangladesh, actually, like Cambodia, benefited extensively from the acceptance of preferential access to the US, provided Bangladesh met the ILO covenants, just like Cambodia, and of course everything but arms clause of the European Union. So it actually gave quite a bit of advantage over, say, Pakistan, which has got a per capita income now less than Bangladesh, but it does not enjoy. There are three reasons how a country becomes classified as LDC. And in one of them, of course, Pakistan did not qualify to be there. Now, the reason I raised that question is also because of the fact that I visited textile and garment firms in Pakistan. In fact, a lot of the fabric that goes to Bangladesh, either through third country or directly, actually comes from Pakistan. Not just cotton, but also cotton reinforced with polyester, acrylic, and so on. Now, what I've seen there is the extensive proliferation of robots, not because the Pakistanis want to introduce robots, but because of the brand holders. They do tele-monitoring of work, they want precision and no defects whatsoever. Now, with that sort of thing, given the new normal, where social distancing is a key element, which means to say that people would prefer, not just governments, communities, because of the need to socially distance, because of to check the spread of the virus. Now, what does it actually mean? Don't you think that it's possible that a lot of this will be reshored back, say, to countries like China, even to Taiwan, at the moment that's happening, to South Korea, because they are relying much less on workers now? So what does that actually mean to Bangladesh in the next few years?
Okay, Professor, thank you for your interesting question. this is a question that we also ponder about. We have long thought. Let me answer it first. At some point of time, we'll have to graduate and move on from this garment sector. Because, the advantage that you have seen that we have in terms of inexpensive labor force, may not continue for long. So automatically, we will have to gradually move on to and empower other sectors of development for Bangladesh. But if you see, this automation and use of robots are also coming to the garment sector in Bangladesh. In many of the modern garment factories, if you see, you will be astonished to see that they have modernized their entire system. In a flow where 10 workers used to work, they've been replaced by one robot and been automatized. So, Bangladeshi garments factories are also going for automation day by day, and that again brings a second challenge, that where will these workers will go when they will be replaced by these robots and automation. So Bangladeshi entrepreneurs and industries will have to look for other sectors where we can employ our huge population, maybe electronic sectors or other sectors. So entirely relying on the garment sector for long and years after will make us vulnerable to a lot of these changes and shift in supply chain and automation. So that's why my personal opinion is that we should be gradually looking for investment in and developing in other sectors also, because this automation is coming. And also we should increase the skill level of our workers to do other activities also, or employ in other industries like electronics, like Vietnam did, and gradually moved on. So that's why, yes, these challenges are there, and we need to learn to adapt and adjust. And automation is not only coming in Pakistan, it will also automatically come in Bangladesh.
Yeah, I have my last question, Professor Sarwar, which is actually, given the sort of data that they've used, even though in certain years it's understandable, they are not exactly, say, 2008, some of them firms responded as 2009, and that's inevitable in that sort of sense. But you have 3 points, 3 time points, 2008, 2012, and 2016. I'm not sure, you perhaps have already done this. You could have had, say, a common index that represents corporate social responsibility, and have a time point, meaning using that and those 6 points over the investors to see performance, and to see whether this performance, even using those components as well as a common index that you might normalize and obtain. Have you tried it? If not, because it gives you a time dimension whether things are improving. Would you consider doing that?
Yes, that's a very good idea, Professor. No, we haven't done it, but that's a very good suggestion. Once we do it for the 2020, I will normalize it and try to do it as you have suggested. Thank you very much for your suggestion.
There are 3 other questions suddenly came in. I hope we have enough patience and energy to respond. The next one is, will corporate social responsibility activities support labor to prevent joblessness that may be coming by because of COVID-19?
Yes. You see, this particular CSP index, instrument that we does not yet include question directly for addressing COVID-19. But in our original index question, we had some question where how do this particular company take care about retirement, take care about the employees who are terminated, and how they do it, whether they talk with the labor union representative or not, whether they give them a chance to defend. And we have also questions like whether they help them, although the companies may not do it, there are also questions whether they help them to get the next job. So in the previous one, we had those questions, but not fine-tuned for COVID-19. So once we are going to do it for 2020, because in every time we adjust our questions a little bit to reflect the new development of regulations and everything. In the next time when we are going to do that, we are going to incorporate this COVID-19 crisis question and modify our indexes a little bit.
Thank you. The next question here is, have we got a government framework, a guideline that prioritizes particular target areas, particular components of CSR, or particular regions in Bangladesh? Is there a government guideline or framework?
Let me first answer the second one. About the particular sector, we see shift in government, initiative in with regard to particular sector. At some point of time, we have seen that regulators are emphasizing on the banking sector. At some point of time in 2016, we have seen that emphasizing on financial institution. We see this target sector sometimes. They try to regulate more and impose more restrictions. And the first part that we see that for government, what they are in a special dimension of the CSR, whether they prioritize, we see that first, corporate governance is more prioritized. Second, we see environment. Environment is also the second priority. But again, this priority changes if you come to the sector. If we see in the banking sector, at some point of time, we have seen that central bank is prioritizing environment more than government. So at different sector, at different time, we see different priorities by the regulator, by regulations. That really changes everything that we see in that particular sector. And as I am saying that it's a regulator-driven thing. It's not by the choice of the companies that they are being sustainable. Yet, it's a regulator-driven thing. Wherever regulator imposes regulations and become more strict, we see development on that particular sector.
Okay, I couldn't understand completely the question 7 here, but let me just try to figure out what it exactly means. Although the question focuses much more on how business firms are responding, discussion on their initiatives, I think along the way here, which I would like to bring to you, because all governments that pledged when the Paris Accord was signed in 2015 on capping temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius over the next 100 years, all countries were supposed to submit an INDC, which stands for Intended Nationally Determined Contribution. Now, that would mean government would have had a framework. So it's just like Malaysia has got a framework, Laos PDR has got a framework, Cambodia has a framework. Now, in this sort of sense here, I'm just relating it to the question on a government. I don't know what this acronym stands for. You might know what it is. BGMEA. You know what that means? Bangladesh, I suppose, BG.
Yes, Bangladesh Garments Manufacturers and Exporters Association, BGMEA.
Okay. Now, the question then is raised in relation to requesting the role of government and Bangladesh MEA on this.
Okay, I think the participants asked question about this compliance of Bangladesh with regard to this mission of reducing CO2 emissions. If I get it properly, and BGMA part, I couldn't connect how BGMA is connected with that one, but let me answer in any way, focus this. As I have mentioned in my preliminary slide about the climate change adaptability. And I have also mentioned that Bangladesh government has taken a policy to mainstream all activities that a particular ministry does with regard to climate change. So that's why whenever we try to build bridges, road, constructions, or do things and make some public expenditure, almost more than 20 or 23 ministries and departments of government try to mainstream that so that they can connect it with the climate change. So that's why climate change and these climate activities are mainstreamed into the development project and structures of Bangladesh. And with this place of making it, keeping the CO2 below 1.5 degree, Bangladesh is a signatory, and Bangladesh has a place to fulfill the commitment and working on it. Of course, we have a varied degree of development and achievement so far. But with regard to that, Bangladesh in the government level, also investment in the Green Climate Fund and pledging to the international community, Bangladesh have pleased to do that. So Prof, I'm not also sure about this entire question, how it relates to GME. I'm sorry, I won't be able to connect.
Okay, the next question first starts with a glorification of your presentation. The person enjoyed your presentation, so let me underline that. Now the next, the real question posed by this question number 8 is how important is CSP, CSR it should be, corporate social responsibility in attracting institutional investment. My own feeling is from your own presentation, you mentioned it's low, insignificant now, but the trend shows potential. That's the sort of outcome that I heard from you. Now, yes. But the question also raises that the question feels that the attraction towards institutional investment is more to the technology sector rather than on promoting corporate social responsibility.
Okay. Yes. As I told you that we have seen very distressing figures also, that we have seen that in companies which is showing negative ROA or ROE, the company which are not profitable, let alone sustainable, still they have institutional investment in Bangladesh. And then how come this is possible? An institutional investor is supposed to look into profitability and also sustainability. So if one asks me how you will tell that this is justified, how this company is attracting institutional investors, as you see that in different point of time, government provided and instructed institutional investors to invest into the companies to uplift the stock market. So we see very different statistics in altogether in different companies. So this is if you go by company, but overall, by observing the data and the trend in Bangladesh since 2008, all I can say that yes, this relationship is not statistically significant or very big, but it's still better compared to 2008, compared to 2012, standing on 2016. We can see this positive trend, but again and again, I'm saying that this is not very statistically significant. Still, we have a long way to go.
Thank you very much, Professor Sarwar Uddin. I myself enjoyed very much, learned a lot from your presentation. Since I no longer see any more questions, let me pass the cue back to the MC, Professor Fumitaka Purwoka. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Sarwar. Really, I learned a lot of things. Particularly, I'm often hear the corporate social performance influence financial performance, but middle term got the institutional investment. That is really interesting for me, and I want to learn from you more about this. And also, Professor Rajarashia, excellent moderation and deepen a lot of discussion. And all of us today learn a lot, and this is really for us is great opportunity to get a lot of interesting knowledge and the thinking on the Bangladesh social responsibilities. And AI will be organized more webinar in the coming months, and all of you, we hope you will join us. And thank you very much, and see you at our next event. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Thank you. Yes.